an Esper Pixie up against Dylan Harris on Mono Red Aggro, who's already getting things underway with the Monastery Swift Spear in for one.
Yeah, I think this is where we're getting into precarious position. Up until this point, we've seen players that are undefeated or X and 1. These players are X and 2 as we're going deeper into the day. Of course, there is still a lot to play for, but as we wind down towards those final rounds of Swiss, it is going to be very important to not pick up a third and especially not a fourth loss. So
absolutely,
this is a very important match for both of these players.
Nowhere to run, targeting the Ember Heart Challenger here, and we're going to get a counter on our Optimistic Scavenger for Greg. So dealing with one of Dylan's threats here. You see that System Magic sticker on the table for Greg. That is his stream that he runs with Andrew Ellenbogen, if you've seen them running about on the internet.
Pro Tour champion Andrew Ellenbogen?
That's right.
That one?
That's
Andrew
right.
Ellenbogen?
That's correct.
Never heard of him.
That's pretty good at Magic. Was in our feature match area yesterday. Back over to Dylan Harris. Plays the third mountain. Turning that Swift Spear sideways. That's what we do.
And that's Witchstalker Frenzy being cast. Of course, Witchstalker Frenzy does get a bit of a discount for each creature that has attacked this turn. So getting the attack in with the Swift Spear then gets the cost reduction on the Witchstalker Frenzy down to just 3 and allows you to clear off the way before Greg is able to attack, continue pushing damage through, as that is the name of the game. Obviously, Dylan not ecstatic about using his entire third turn to just remove a blocker and push 2 damage through.
Right.
But if Greg can't remove the Swift Spear, that is a good sign for Dylan.
What do you think about this matchup overall for the Pixie player?
I think that you are building this Pixie deck trying to deal with a deck like Mono Red, having cards like Nowhere to Run, and then having your entire deck be able to continuously bounce and rebounce and reuse this means that you're able to keep the board in check constantly. One of the things that this deck doesn't do incredibly is gain life.
Right.
You don't have that much life gain. So once your life starts whittling down, until you go into a position where you've stabilized, that can be a bit scary if the mono red deck starts sending burn spells to your face. Now, this isn't like Boros Burn, where you're worried about Lightning Helix and Boros Charm, but still, cards like Lightning Strike are going to do a good job of closing out this game. Same with Burst Lightning, which was a new addition to the deck, thanks to, of course, Magic Foundations.
Tithing Blade, the previous turn, the play there for Greg Michael, a one of fun of in this list, caused a Swift Spear to be sacrificed, followed up by Spiteful Hexmage, putting a Cursed Roll on itself. But here's the benefit of that Cursed Roll, just going away to that Fear of Isolation, so now that thing can attack as a 3-2.
Yeah, this is nice. Of course, Greg not picking up the Nowhere to Run or the Blade here does make me believe that he has access to another removal spell in hand. And knowing that he is on a clock with the potential of burn spells coming out from Dylan means that Greg just continues to try to be as aggressive as possible. And when Dylan plays the 5th land and passes, Greg has to now have Burst Lightning on his radar as a potential kicked 4 damage to the face. And it's not going to take too many of those to close out the game from Dylan's side. So Greg needs to start going fast and have a game plan in case Dylan is just trying to close out the game using burn spells.
An attack here from Greg sends Dylan down to 12. Here's another Fear of Isolation. See what he bounces. All right, this time it is going to be Nowhere to Run. And
That's
there's
4.
the Burst Lightning. Boom, 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 right to the face. Greg Michael down to 7, untapping for Dylan Harris.
The race is on.
Face is the place.
Face is the place.
Shout out to Dylan's sleeves. I hope that's his cat.
Whoever's cat that is, those sleeves are excellent.
A+ sleeves. Another mountain pass from Dylan Harris here. Back over to Greg. Dylan at 12 life. Greg here turning on the gas. In come the birds. In comes the Hexmage, down to 5 for Harris. Follow-up, another Fear of Isolation, bouncing the blade back to hand, playing a tap land and passing. Another face damage here. Greg down to 4. Oh my gosh! A burst lightning to finish it off. Sometimes you don't need any creatures, you just need the burn.
Unfortunately, that's the name of the game, and Dylan needed to get a little lucky, but played to his outs and maximized the points of burn. And I mentioned no life gain. We do see Esper Pixie typically bringing a card like Sheltered and using that to give lifelink to creatures as well as a removal
Right.
spell. No copies in Greg's deck. Greg and Andrew Ellenbogen both brought this Esper Pixie list, but notably that is a card that they do not like and have not included in their deck. So that life gain not available to them, and that's points that you are giving up in this exact matchup, where now Dylan Harris from looking dead to up a game.
It's just incredible. I was sitting there being like, he's just playing mountains. He's just passing. He's not doing anything. This red player needs to get on the table. No, Maria, he actually doesn't. He just needs to aim burn spells right at Greg's face.
Yeah, and that means we are going to the sideboarding with Greg Michael being down a game in possibly the best position that he could have had to try to take this match.
All right, so taking a peek at the sideboards for these players, we'll start things off with our mono-red player here in Dylan Harris. We have 4 Sunspine Links, 2 Twisted Fealty, 2 Pyroclasm, a Lithomantic Barrage, 3 copies of Shock, and 3 Urabrask's Forge. What are you bringing in, Monty?
Well, I think the first thing that Dylan is going to notice in this open decklist day 2 is that there really isn't life gain coming out from Greg, and that helps a lot. But I think when you are facing a matchup like this Pixie deck that they are trying to reuse their removal spells a lot, one thing that I would be very much interested in is Urabrask's Forge. Just having a repeatable source of pressure to come out, I think would be quite nice. Overall, I don't know if you need that much help against the Pixie deck because Shelter by Ghost isn't there. And I think there's a chance that we just don't see Dylan make that much of a change other than this potential Urabrask Forge.
Okay, very interesting. On the other side of things, Greg Michael, let's take a peek at that sideboard here. We've got Kaido. We have Lauren of the Third Path, Pest Control, No More Lies, 3 copies of Destroy Evil, Cut Down, 1 Defiled Crypt, 2 Temporary Lockdown, and 2 Witch's Vanity.
I think on this side, you really want to make sure that you have as much removal as possible. Cards like Cut Down looking extremely good here. Witch's Vanity can be a bit of a liability just because it is sorcery speed, but it has a lot of value in that food token, giving you some life gain to finally work with. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Witch's Vanity come in as both repeatable life gain with the bounce as well as removal. And then cards like Temporary Lockdown, a massive liability just because it does cost you your own things that you are trying to bounce, but might be necessary as well.
I'm taking a look here at Greg Michael's record throughout the tournament. Has beaten Gruul aggro 3 times, it looks like. Has never been up against Mono Red aggro until this moment in the tournament. Mono Red capable of going faster than Gruul, Monty?
Yeah, it's a deck that is typically able to go faster. You're giving up some of the reach. Gruul typically has Questing Druid that allows you to grind more and have access to more resources. So you're giving that up to be more explosive, but it also means that you are able to absolutely steal games.
Greg Michael, hailing from the Minneapolis area. So one of my good friends in the Magic the Gathering scene, and also one of the nicest people you'll just ever meet in your natural life. If you ever see him at a tournament, I encourage you to go up and say hi because he's just a lovely human being and runs a great stream in that System Magic stream as well, giving them a shout out. I'm going to have to go up and talk to Dylan, though, and just confirm if that is indeed his cat, and more importantly, what his cat's name is on those sleeves.
I see. Okay. All right.
It's important.
No, absolutely. I'm not judging.
Thank you, Monty. You're a cat man.
I am a cat man.
We both have 2 cats.
We both have 2 cats.
They're betrothed. I have 2 boys. You have 2 girls. They're
Yep.
going to get married one day.
They will get married.
Yep. That's
Mostly it is going to be a green card marriage. My
Yes.
cats want to move to the United States, and
Yeah.
in order to do that, they need to marry your cats.
Yep. That's
Right.
exactly how the law works.
That is how the law works.
And I'm glad we've made this arrangement.
Cat immigration is a really serious issue.
When Monty was getting his cats, I wanted to name them, and I asked if he could name them Sandwich and Stepdad. But that
did not happen.
Did not happen. But
No.
that's still what I call them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. This has been your cat report coming at you from Spotlight Foundations. Both players in the feature match area smiling, getting some laughs in, having a good time. Nice to see that this deep into the tournament here on day number 2. A lot on the line for these players, sitting at 9-2, good records. Ooh, update, update. It is his cat. Critical. The cat's name is Westbrook.
All right, great. And those cat sleeves bringing Dylan a lot of luck because it looks like Greg is mulliganing to 6, but Dylan has kept his 7.
Okay, so good starting hand here for Dylan Harris. See if Greg likes this 6. Looks like he is keeping. There's the skirt at the bottom. Excuse me, the card on the bottom. Dylan Harris up a game over Greg Michel here in round number 12.
All right, so what is Greg 6 looking like, and how capable is he of weathering the storm that this mono red aggro deck is able to come up with?
Hardfire hero the play here for Dylan Harris to kick things off. Do we have an answer? It's going to be that tithing blade from Greg forcing the sacrifice from Dylan.
-1.
Yeah. Yeah, 19. All right, Emberhard hero into the Emberhard challenger into the red zone for Dylan. Greg knocked down to 17.
Pixie?
Replay the sword, maybe?
All right, the Witch's Vanity will do.
Okay, sure.
Let the life gain begin.
Witch's Vanity. What a card. I didn't think I would be thinking about that card this weekend, gotta say.
Yeah, any sort of sticky removal or value that comes in permanent form suddenly becomes a consideration when you are playing this Esper Pixie deck. And the Witch's Vanity, it is awkward because you do have very specific timing on it. As a saga, if you allow it to get to the 3rd chapter, it will go away. So Greg has 1 turn to bounce it in order to reuse it in the future. But if he's able to do that, getting the food token out of it and picking it up as a removal spell again will be really nice.
Absolutely. It is a saga, so we are going to go up to chapter 2 next turn. And we played a Hopeless Nightmare last turn as well, knocking Harris down to 18 and forcing that discard.
I believe it was a Swift Spear that was discarded, and Dylan does have a Manifold Mouse to follow it up, but the fact that his 2 previous mice have both been answered makes this Manifold Mouse look a little sad on its own. Hey.
Oh, all right. Fear of Isolation is going to bounce the Witch's Vanity back to hand and take down that Manifold Mouse.
Just like we drew it up.
All right, so Greg Michel here in the driver's seat, despite the Malta 6 here in game number 2. All right, there's that Swift Spear, followed up by a Lightning Strike to take care of our isolation in for 2.
Yeah, but you can definitely see how Greg has done a great job of keeping his life total up this game. And these food tokens are going to be very valuable as we go forward. But again, this may be the last food token you get out of this copy of Witch's Vanity if you don't have a way to pick it up here.
Storm Chaser's Talent, the play here for Greg, is going to come along with an Otter token. Looks like he's looking for a different Otter token.
This Otter is not good enough?
I mean, we were playing with foil ones on coverage, so that's all I can think he was thinking of.
Oh, I see.
A little bit earlier, but I don't know if those were the players or not.
All right, so with the pass, I can't see for sure, but I do believe Greg may be hellbent here with no cards in hand. Would not be overly surprising considering he did mulligan, but still has a lot of tools on the battlefield to work with, just will be losing this Witch's Vanity if so.
Swift Spear into the red zone for Dylan. Greg takes it down to 14. Follow-up play. Oh, we've got that Sunspire Lynx.
The Lynx is here. Players can't gain life, and I will say Greg sacrificing a food token before that comes down, as you really do not want to be dealing with that Lynx.
Just like the Minnesota women's basketball team, the Lynx is here to win. Or almost win, as the case were.
4 non-basic lands for Greg, so that is 4 damage being dealt by the Lynx on entering.
Wow. Terrific sideboard card there from Dylan Harris. That art on that card is also just wild.
All right, we have a Wicked roll coming onto this Otter.
I'm wondering about this sword that Greg has in play too. The Tithing Blade can switch over into Consuming Sepulcher. Excuse me, that word's impossible.
No, you're doing great.
Thank you,
One more
Monty.
time.
Consuming Sepulcher.
Okay.
How, I mean, How relevant is that?
Uh, it's not nothing. It's it
It'll
takes a lot, but it's not nothing.
Okay, I'll take not nothing, I guess. Back over to Dylan Harris's turn.
The big thing is this Lynx is a problem once it's on the battlefield. It is a large creature, and as we know, Greg doesn't have that many resources to work with.
Both creatures turning sideways here for Dylan Harris.
I think Greg has a Restless Anchorage on the battlefield, if I'm not mistaken. So has a creature land that he is able to fire up here, but that is very vulnerable against mono red.
Not a terrific place for Greg to be in after just a couple of turns when it looked like he had control of the game, removing Dylan's creatures with relative ease. Just so shows you the resilience of these red aggro style decks in this day and age.
Yeah, and it is also the precariousness of the Esper Pixie deck.
Sure.
We've talked about how the deck looks really impressive when it's firing on all cylinders, but it does have some awkward elements to it as well. If you don't find these bounce effects to really start getting value out of your cards, these cards being one and dones are not the best.
Right, exactly. If you're only casting Hopeless Nightmare one time, you're like, who cares?
Yeah, this is bad. Almost actively.
Restless Anchorage here is getting animated, and it looks like it's that along with the Wicked Otter are going to jump in front of one creature here from Dylan Harris. Lynx unblocked. That was the thing I noticed when I was testing some of the summon games with Esper Pixie, is that occasionally the draws could just feel so horrendous if you just had a bunch of your payoffs but no enablers, for example. You're like, wow, my hand is so underpowered compared to what other people could be doing, like, for example, domain control in the format.
Yeah, it also, let's take a card like Storm Chaser Sound, which is so good in the deck, right? But so far, this draw hasn't yielded any instant or sorceries. So the second level of the talent, the class, does nothing here. And that is a really big problem when you're working with limited resources. This deck is all about trying to make the most out of each card, and as soon as one of your cards is only doing half of its thing or a third of its thing, that is a massive problem.
Monstrous Rage here onto the Lynx comes across for a ton of damage at Greg Michael, knocking him all the way down to 5 life.
5 life that he can't come back from without getting rid of this Lynx. So with the monster roll token as well being on the Lynx, you can't just be chumping that.
Right. And like you mentioned, Greg was hellbent, so we're going to need some kind of draw here.
We're going to need a lot of help, and I don't really know where things begin, except maybe with this town ain't big enough, or a fear of isolation. Something to...
Oh, dear.
All right, Upkeep Scry. He needs something bad.
Both
Pixie?
to the bottom. What did he draw?
Pixie or bust.
That is bust. That's a handshake, and that's the game going to Dylan Harris, taking down this match 2-0 versus Greg Michael, improving his record to 10-2 here in round number 12.